Welcome to Star Spangled Awesomeness, where we dive headfirst into the chaos left by the Biden administration, now being masterfully untangled by Donald Trump. I'm your host, an ordinary American who's seen through the smoke and mirrors of mainstream media to grasp the raw, unfiltered truth. Join us as we celebrate this new golden era, shining a light on the corruption and injustices that the media loves to sweep under the rug. Here, we'll showcase the vibrant resurgence of America, reclaiming its former glory. Thank you for tuning in to witness the spectacular comeback of the greatest nation on Earth. Let's waste no more time and get into it. Let me take you on a journey through the labyrinth of corruption, hypocrisy, and exploitation that has unfolded with the United States Agency of International Development, otherwise known as USAID. The story begins not in the distant past, but right here, with the very people who claim to serve the interests of the American people. Those same figures who, ironically, have become architects of a global system that benefits the elite, destabilizes nations, and most importantly, siphons away the money of hard-working Americans. These are the figures who, under the guise of humanitarian work, have used your taxpayer dollars to push their own agenda and line their pockets, all the while undermining American sovereignty and the very values this country once stood for. It all starts with the United States Agency for International Development, or what we know as USAID, which was supposed to be the aid arm of our government. The agency's original mission was simple: to assist developing nations, fight poverty, and promote democracy. But that mission quickly became twisted and co-opted by forces who saw an opportunity to expand America's reach on the global stage, not through diplomacy, not through alliances, but through covert operations, regime change, and power grabs. Now here's where it gets really interesting. USAID is no longer just a humanitarian arm. It has become a tool for the CIA, used as a backchannel to destabilize governments that don't align with the U.S. interests. We've seen this play out in every country they touch: Venezuela, Cuba, Ukraine. Where USAID's programs weren't just about offering food or medicine, they were about setting the stage for regime change, creating instability and overthrowing governments. Democrats, especially the likes of Jamie Raskin, Ilhan Omar, Chuck Schumer, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, otherwise known as AOC, might claim they're angry with Trump. But let's be real here. They're mad because their own hands are dirty. They like to point the fingers at Trump, calling him a threat to democracy, but behind closed doors, many of them are just as complicit in the systemic abuse of power as anyone else in Washington. Let's break it down, shall we? Jamie Raskin, that self-righteous congressman from Maryland, likes to grandstand about the rule of law and the moral superiority of the United States. Yet, his precious party has been neck-deep in pushing for military interventions, covert regime change operations, and economic destabilization through USAID-funded projects. The truth? These guys use the public's trust to fund organizations and NGOs that serve their own political objectives, often with catastrophic consequences. And there seems to be this common trait that the Democrats all share, which is their ability to not only put out inaccurate information, like what Jamie Raskin says here about who created USAID.
Elon Musk, you didn't create USAID. The United States Congress did for the American people.
And look how ignorant these people are, cheering and clapping for that. Jamie Raskin flat out lied to the American public. It is false that Congress created USAID. It was President Kennedy who did in 1961, where he signed an executive order. Ilhan Omar, of course, has her own set of contradictions. She claims to be a champion for the oppressed, yet she's aligned with a system that funnels USAID money into countries like her own Somalia. This radical leftist should be kicked out of Congress. Not only is she anti-American, but it appears that she's here solely to support Somalia and send money to Somalia. So that's why she's so pissed off about USAID funding being cut off. When USAID sets up shop in places like Haiti, It's not about providing humanitarian aid. It's about corporate interests, about forcing governments to fall in line with U.S. policies, and about ensuring that American companies have a chokehold on resources. Don't forget about the Clinton Foundation and their disastrous involvement in Haiti. The billions sent in the name of aid didn't just disappear into thin air. No, they ended up enriching the Clinton Foundation, not to mention the handful of NGOs who became rich off the tragedy. Meanwhile, the Haitian people saw little real benefit. Chuck Schumer and AOC are no better. Both from New York, Schumer has played both sides, claiming to protect the interests of American citizens while quietly allowing our taxpayer dollars to flow into these operations that destabilize governments. AOC, the darling of the progressive left, likes to talk a big game about corporate greed and wealth inequality, but funny enough, she has yet to raise her own voice about how USAID money is used to prop up regimes, enrich multinational corporations, and fund destructive projects that destabilize the very countries she claims to care about. Now, let's talk about the money laundering, shall we? Because this is where things get really ugly. USAID funds don't just vanish into the ether. They are channeled through NGOs, nonprofits, and even private corporations, all of which serve as middlemen for a corrupt system. The NGOs pocket huge amounts of monies, skim a portion off the top, and then funnel it back into political causes, many of which fund left-wing advocacy groups pushing for censorship, propaganda, and political manipulation. And don't think for a second that the agenda is innocent. Oh no. These NGOs and foundations aren't working to lift people out of poverty and to really help them advance and be equal. No, they are working to create a network of dependency, instability, and political chaos. What do you think the role of digital IDs and censorship fits into all of this? It's simple. Control. If you control the money, you control the people. If you can impose a global digital ID system where individuals are tracked, monitored, and censored at every turn, you've essentially created a global surveillance state. This leads us to the most recent example of USAID's reach, the regime change operation here in the United States in 2020. How, you might ask? Well, think about it. Well, we look at how tech giants and media corporations shut down dissenting voices, suppressed evidence, and pushed one-sided narratives in the name of public health. What were they really doing? They were following a playbook that USAID had perfected overseas for decades. USAID funded organizations like the National Endowment for Democracy, have been involved in color revolutions around the world, but now they've turned their attention inward, funneling money into political campaigns, censorship, and propaganda to ensure the right people stay in power. The bottom line is this. USAID is a vehicle for political manipulation, financial corruption, and destabilization, all the while posing as a champion of democracy and freedom. The people who claim to be outraged by Trump, those same politicians who have been lecturing us about ethics, are, in fact, benefiting from this rigged system. They're playing the public for fools, taking your money, using it to enrich themselves, and pushing forward policies that tear down the very foundation of American sovereignty. Whether it's Jamie Raskin or Ilhan Omar, Chuck Schumer, or even that AOC woman, they're all part of the same corrupt machine, working hand in hand with agencies like the CIA and big corporations to further their own agenda at the expense of the American people. So next time they stand on a soapbox and tell you what's best for the country, remember this. They're not fighting for you. They're fighting for their own power and profit, using your tax dollars to fund it. And USAID? It's just a vehicle they've chosen to drive their corruption forward. And that is why, my friends, this is so important that this gets exposed. In closing, listen to Michael Schellenberger from Public explain how we are getting our country back.
Moving quickly and airing USAID's dirty laundry publicly, Musk and Trump have sent a strong signal against censorship and other anti-democratic actions used by USAID. USAID has the unique distinction of being both a deep state agency involved in covert actions aimed at destabilizing foreign governments and one of the main U.S. government agencies that comprise the foreign policy establishment. The pursuit of globalism and foreign intervention has proved not only to be costly and distracting, but has also fueled abuses of power against American citizens. Since his first election in 2016, it has become even more evident that blowback from U.S. foreign policy would disrupt harmony at home. To combat alleged misinformation, the censorship industrial complex used counterterrorism and intelligence tactics developed abroad, including psychological operations, and repurposed them to shape domestic opinion and thought. This repurposing of national security tools was a key feature of the weaponization of government against Trump, his supporters, and other dissidents. As part of U.S. government efforts to overthrow governments abroad or simply influence what they do, USAID has in recent years been funding censorship advocacy worldwide through its Countering Disinformation program, which is part of its Consortium for Elections and Political Process Strengthening. This work has included funding for so-called fact-checking organizations, including in Brazil, which governments use as a predicate for demanding censorship by social media companies. The links between USAID regime change work abroad and anti-Trump work in the United States may go deeper than people realize. Before working at the Department of Homeland Security, Nina Jankowicz worked on democracy assistance programs for NDI, the USAID-funded program in Eastern Europe. And as we discovered through the Twitter files, Jankowicz was involved in an effort, CIA venture capital fund-backed effort to seize control of Twitter's content moderation. And why are progressive Democrats outraged? Well, in part because USAID funded many of them, including Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Trump and Musk can likely expect significant congressional blowback this week due to their abrupt halting of USAID funding, the firing of its leaders, and the shutting down of its website and X accounts. Trump may have anticipated the rising concern when he reassured a reporter last night that he had not made a decision about the future of the organization and was simply removing the radical lunatics who ran it. It is incredible that Trump, who Democrats and the media derided as a fascist for years, has done significantly more than ostensibly left-wing figures like Ocasio-Cortez to challenge the blob. Trump's focus on sovereignty, realism, and strength is a major departure from decades of foreign meddling, regime change, and influence operations. This move is a key step in shifting U.S. focus away from globalist projects and back to domestic prosperity, which has been a feature of Trump's platform for years. Said Trump in 2016, "We will no longer surrender this country or its people to the false song of globalism."
So much winning has been going on in almost 3 weeks that Donald Trump has been in office. I swear, every day feels like Christmas. Now that this has been exposed, you know that the Democrats and the deep state are seriously big mad over their money train getting stopped. And all the fake tears that are being shed over this. Ask the Americans how they feel about that. Senator Kennedy sums it up brilliantly.
To my friends who are upset, I would say with respect, call somebody who cares. They better get used to this. It's USAID today. It's going to be Department of Education tomorrow.
And there you have it, folks. Until next time.
I think you're a star-spangled awesome.